helped us when the crows got
on. Oh, man.
He'd been convinced that the hen had moved off, and he was really hot.
Oh, he was coming in a heartbeat, that's for sure. Look at that brush on him.
Yeah.
Look at that brush on him.
He did a good job, wasn't he?
Yes, he's a big turkey. Awful big turkey. I'll tell you what, folks. That's what you call being done to perfection right there. Nice bird, easy bird, the ones you kind of like to hunt. Here you go, Michael. And the nicest things about this hunt, we just tried out Bosch & Lomb's new turkey scope, mounted on this Remington 1187. It's a whale of a piece of medicine for turkeys.
Work to perfection, Jim.
Absolutely, absolutely, no question about it.
Up here.
All righty. Get him up here when you get him. Well, turkey hunters, the last time we talked to you, we were in scenic, sunny Florida, and today we're up here in wild, wonderful West Virginia. And I've got with me my old partner, turkey calling partner, Tom Duval from Perfection Turkey Calls, and on my right is Mike Dreisbach, who makes these friction calls we're going to talk about today. The purpose of this video is to make you as good a friction caller as you can possibly be. Last year we came out with a video, we called it the A to Z textbook on using the mouth yelper. This year we're going to show them A to triple Z on how to use friction calls. So, you know, these things have been around for a long time, these friction type calls have, and we're going to define a friction call as rubbing one rough surface, one hard surface on another to get a turkey type sound. And they've been around, probably the first calls that were invented, other than the wing bone type calls or the friction calls. And we've got a couple antique calls we'd like to show you here at first, just to show you how long these have been around. I'm not sure this goes under the heading of an antique, Mike, but it's a pretty old call.
Well, it's an old one, and this one, believe it or not, is something my dad made many years ago. And when I was 12 years old, I killed a turkey with it. So it does work. It just two pieces of wood, and probably some of you have these type of calls at home.
Has a good raspy quality to it.
Yep.
I got this particular call from a fella in Perryville, Arkansas named Gene Denton. And I'm sure Gene will be watching this video, and we'll make his call famous maybe, but it's a little thin piece of slate. We have to make our own cup with it. We're going to get underneath it with this striker. We're going to call it like this now. I'll have to make a little deeper cup with it on my knee here.
Great sound.
It has a good sound, high-pitched sound, but it does have a good sound to it. But again, you have to make your own cup. We have our own resonators on these calls. My hand is the resonator on this one. Thomas?
Well, I have a real sophisticated call here. It's a piece of sandstone, a block of cedar, and a sheet metal screw. This works same as the slate and the glass calls. You don't get quite the volume, but it would work to call in turkeys. There are a lot of variations of this type of call in the market. Mike has kind of put us into high-tech society in that he's come up with these glass and slate calls, and we make 4 different friction calls of this type. This is a triple glass. If you all help me out there, one of you hold a double glass.
I got the double.
One of you held the slate.
I got the slate.
Then we have one with the slate one side and glass the other. And the only reason we did this was for the turkey hunter. You have a sound that you're trying to achieve, and we think that with one of these calls you can achieve that sound. You can either get the high pitch, you can get the lower pitch, you can get the raspy sound, and it's a matter of just changing from one surface to the other. In your package that you have with your video, you have the double glass that Mike is holding. We feel that this is probably our better all-around call. It's a medium pitch. It's not real high, real low, or real raspy. But as you use these calls, you might want to try all 4 of them. At least we hope you will.
Well, another thing, Thomas, is that these things are color-coded. You know, you've got a green triple. You've got, obviously, this is a over and under here with the slate and glass. I've got a black bottom on this one, which is a slate call, and Mike has a brown one for the double glass. So it's real easy pretty easy to tell these things apart, even when you don't have them in the package. Mike, tell us a little bit about how you manufacture these things and various parts that go into making one of these type calls.
When Tom talks about these things being high-tech, he's really correct, because the way we build these things at Perfection, we actually bond these calls together, first of all. They're not glued together, and by bonding them, we have a heat curing process that really assures the quality is going to be good, the call is going to work in the wettest of conditions, and it will always have that excellent quality to make the right kind of sounds for you people out there. Basically, what we've done is our resonator call if you look on the back of one you've got with your video package, it's got basically 9 holes in it. Those holes are there to allow the sound to come out of the call. The call will really do the right kind of work for you if you learn how to use it. We say it's like a musical instrument, and so that will make those good sounds for you. You also notice that on your call that you've got with the package that there's sort of a shoulder right here, and we'll talk about how do you hold the call a little bit later, and that's really the way it's designed. 2 other things that we do in our calls, we put an internal baffle system in them. First of all, in a double glass or in the slate glass, we have just one baffle of thin glass that's bonded in to make sure it stays there. And then if we go to the triple glass call, it's actually got 3 pieces of fiberglass with it and 2 pieces of glass that will make a different type of resonator. But the calls are really going to last a long time. The other thing that you need to learn about these type of calls, the glass call that you got with the video, it really does have a glass surface, and we tell people it's a real hard to get glass. We travel all over West Virginia looking for 1967 DeSoto wing vent glass.
Well, West Virginia, you can still find DeSoto wing vent glass in West Virginia, that's right.
So it's pretty difficult to find. But what you want to do at home is you want to learn how to sand these calls with really heavy sandpaper, and make sure that you sand that surface real hard until you get a lot of dust on it. Tommy and I like the real number 36 grit paper that really gives it real abrasive
No. You guys really don't understand. What we need here is some sanding screen. I like to use this regular drywall sanding screen, and it cuts it just as well. And like Mike said, the big test is, can you get that dust off if you can? And keep your greasy fingers off these surfaces. Probably the worst thing about them is people want to put their hands on the surface or their hands on the end of the striker. So we tell them to sand that striker just as often as they sand the surface. We're going to take this striker and we're going to sand the end of the striker also.
Well, there's another important thing you need to learn too, and Tom's got a piece of Scotch-Brite, and it's really for the slate calls, right?
Yeah, you don't want to use 36 grit on slate calls or you'll be buying a new call pretty quickly. But this is a piece of Scotch-Brite, and again, you need to keep this surface clean, free from grease, fingerprints, and any type of dirt that may accumulate on the surface. But again, you'll get a powder off of the slate call just as you do with the glass call. But clean this surface and keep it clean, and your call will perform better for you.
One last thing on the sanding. You may want to learn how to sand it in one direction, like this. And once you've got that thing sanded pretty well, you now will learn later on to use a striker and call against that grit or that grain, and it sort of maximizes the friction and maximizes that surface for you. Tom, why don't you talk a little bit about the types of strikers that we put with these types of calls?
All right, let me borrow your striker there a minute.
Go right ahead.
We make basically 3 materials for strikers. This is an acrylic striker. We have a wood striker, maple or hickory, and we have a graphite. Each of these will give you a different sound. We've experimented quite a bit with length and diameter on these calls or on these strikers in order to get the maximum sound out of your call. You'll find that we pack the acrylic striker with all the calls because on mornings like this morning when it's a heavy dew or it's pouring down rain, you want a striker that's going to work on the surface of your call. This is a triple glass call. Pardon me. If you get this wet, and I'm going to wet it much more than you would ever wet it in a hunting situation. Just take it, pour water over it. Now this will call right through all that moisture.
But again, you're using the acrylic striker, now not the wood striker.
No, the wood striker will act like a wick and it'll absorb moisture and you'll have no call at all. So again, this is why this call or striker is packed with your call. Works well in wet weather.
And one other important thing to know that the surfaces of our glass calls are really specially treated so that they do work in the rain. And not all calls will work in the rain. There are some imitations out there that are glass that don't really do that.
Everybody says theirs will work, but we know ours will work.
That's right.
All right, let's talk a little bit about technique here. Let's talk about how to use these particular calls. I'm going to grab up a slate call here. And the first thing we tell people is to hold the call up off the palm of the hand. Don't palm it. Get it up here off the palm of the hand, and then marry your hands. Not literally, but put the hand right on the other hand so you can rest the hand here and then work off the call. And it's more of a wrist type action. Pluck a little bit, yelp a little bit. But what that'll do for you, that'll stabilize up, making the call a whole lot whole lot more consistent than it would be otherwise.
Right, and what you're also doing there, I notice you're making small circles, and that's what you want to learn how to do at home, is make a small circle about the size of a dime, and don't get in the habit of picking up the striker and making that woodpecker sound. You want to make it really smooth, right?
Right.
Well, they gobble a woodpecker sometimes.
Or if you're real nervous, right?
Right, if you're real nervous, you can do that.
One thing that we didn't talk about is how to hold the striker. I think the key to using this call is holding the striker properly. Maintain about an 80-degree angle between the surface of your call and the striker handle. Too much angle, you get no sound at all. Get it too straight up, you get no sound. So get this 80-degree angle. Hold the striker loosely. If you squeeze it too tight, your knuckles start to get white, then you're going to get screeches out of your call. So let the call work for you. A real light pressure. If you squeeze it hard, it'll squeak. That's because I put too much squeeze on it. Real light pressure, proper angle. Learn to hold the striker.
Okay, basic like writing with a pencil. And we're going to hold it here. And again, we talk about climbing the striker, going up and down the striker. If you hold the striker down real low and you go to the side of the call, you're going to get a high-pitched sound. If you go up the striker a little further and you go toward the middle of the call, we're going to get more of a what we call a full or a more resonant type sound like that.
And that's real important in the technique of learning how to use these friction calls.
Yeah.
That the way you hold that thing and how high up and down the striker you are is going to really vary the sound for you to make those type of sounds you want.
All right, one more thing on holding the striker. As we call going through the video here, you're going to find there'll be some calls that we make real softly. There'll be some calls where we're trying to locate a bird, and you change volume by the amount of downward pressure you put on the call. So if you want a real light, real soft call, a light pressure. Then if you're trying to locate a bird 3 ridges over, bear down on that striker and get a lot of volume with it.
Well, another thing we tell Tommy, we tell folks is that, you know, if you want a high pitch call, go over here on the side of the thing, call over here on the side. Real high pitch like a young hen. As you come in, you get more resonance, a little deeper, and then when you get in the middle, it's a real deep call. And again, you can do it by climbing a striker, you can do it by coming in. There's a ton of different variations you can get off of using these different calls. Mike, you've got a little trick you use to locate birds and to get more resonance and more volume from your call. Go ahead and run with that.
Well, what you'll notice that whenever Jim, Tommy, or myself hold the call, we normally hold it up like this so we allow that sound to come out the back that we talked about earlier. If you want to locate birds, and we'll call this an open stance, you want to bring your hands up away from your body, turn that call out, and really make that sound come out of the back of the call so it projects into a certain direction. That sound travels across those ridges, and it becomes one of the most excellent locator calls you can come up with, probably, and will make birds gobble at really long distances away. The other type of way to hold the call is what most people are accustomed to, is like sort of choking down the call, and they'll sort of bring it in close to their body. Now, you will do that whenever you have the opportunity to set up on a bird and you get a chance to start bringing in a bird from a distance. When you hold the call, try not to really completely close it, but hold it down a little bit, bring it in close to your body, and make the same kinds of sounds by keeping it real close to your body. Bringing your legs up will also help protect any slight motions that you may make with the call.
Well, one of the things we tell people, one of the questions we get constantly is, or one of the comments is, I don't like to use friction calls because I'm afraid turkey's going to see me move. Well, not a problem. You can hold that thing. Tom's got a piece of cloth right here, and we use this sometimes. If you sit up on a bird, put that cloth on your lap like this. Now we're going to have our knees up and our gun on our knees like this. But we'll have that call down here low in our lap, and call, and the bird can't see this movement at all. Now he can't see it. And we get through calling, we're just going to drop the call in our lap and go right to our gun. The call's not going to move, it's not going to roll away, it's going to be here. And again, one of the reasons we came up with this thing, because a couple of years ago I laid a call, and the call bounced off my lap, rolled, and made a big racket going across, and That was the last I heard from the turkey.
Well, that's real important because a lot of times people are really worried about using friction calls before that motion, and you really don't make a lot of motion. It really, I call it being woods worthy,
Sure.
and it really does, you know when to call and when not to call.
Well, you're not going to call if the bird's standing out there 60 yards looking you in the face. I don't think you're going to be calling very much anywhere. You shouldn't be. He's expecting to see feathers, and when he gets that close, I want him to hunt me. I want him to have to find where I am or where that hen sound came from. But if you stand there and call every time he gobbles at 60 yards, he's going to freeze up on you and not come in the rest of the way. So let him look. Make him come looking for you.
It was like that bird yesterday. We worked over here and finally ended up bagging the bird, but he came in the open woods at 80 yards, and we've been calling on the glass and the slate. And he walked in looking and looking and looking. I'm sure if we'd have called in, he'd have stopped him, and like Tommy said, been looking for feathers. He'd have stopped, put the brakes on right there, but we never called after we could see that bird. He slowly progressed down across that little branch, climbed the side on our side, and we were able to pick him up pretty quick.
Yeah, once you know what to do, you can allow that bird to just make that last bit of travel, and you just have to have a good dose of patience in most cases.
Yeah, but friction calls give you the ability to have all that variation in your calls, like different strikers, different lengths of pegs, different kinds of calls, tremendous amount of variations. Like you said, from an old gobbler right up to the youngest hen, you can make almost any kind of call you want to make with a glass or slate call.
Well, it goes back to what we've said before. You don't go bass fishing with one lure. Well, I go turkey hunting with one call. I realize there is some movement, and there are times when your hands are involved in operating the call, but they're excellent sounds, and I want to sound as much like a turkey as I can, and I'll use any type of call available to me to do that.
Well, and a lot of times a bird won't gobble to, let's say, just a mouth call or a box call. We probably look like we're ready to go to war when we go turkey hunt with a vest on full of calls, but I'd rather have that than be out there and be stuck for an answer sometime. If he does something different, I'm going to be able to give him some kind of change-up, some kind of thing maybe he hasn't heard before in a glass or a slate or a different kind of striker, a real raspy call that maybe he hasn't heard. So all these things are important when you're trying to call birds in.
Okay, Jim, I think it's time for us to show some of the different types of calls and how to make these on the slate and glass call. We'll start out with just the basic yelp. In the basic yelp, you need to get a rhythm that sounds like a hen. And we tell people just to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can do this in the circular pattern that we talked about, or you can do it in the straight back and forth. But that's the basic pattern that you're looking for. And then once you've mastered that, you can go to the 3 yelps, or you can go to 7 yelps, or you can go to 10 yelps, but get a rhythm that sounds like a turkey. You can get the old hen yelp by yelping closer to the center and moving up on the peg. You can get the higher pitched young hen yelp out on the edge and going down near the end of the peg. All of them sound different, and what you're trying to do is get a sound that pleases you. The turkeys will respond to either one of these sounds. Another yelp that you're going to learn to use or need to learn to use is the tree yelp. When the birds are still on the roost in the morning, they'll communicate to each other with real soft yelps. On doing this, again, you want that real light downward pressure, hold your striker loosely, and a real soft yelp. And then another type of yelp we find works real well in the fall and in the spring is the old hen assembly yelp. And this is going to be a monotone series of yelps. It might be anywhere from 7 yelps to 15 yelps. I've heard as many as 30 yelps in the old hen assembly yelp. But it's a monotone. These are some of the basic yelps that you want to learn to make. And then after the yelps comes the close-in calling, the cluck and the purr, and Jim will show you how to do these.
Well, again, I'm going back to my favorite, the old slate call, and I like to use a wood striker for these, and I see I'm going to have to sand my striker again here. You can't stress too much how important it is to sand these strikers. We got a call back one day, and a guy said, this thing won't work anymore. It looked like he dipped it in motor oil. The striker was so slick. So it's very important to do that. What I'm going to do here is on the surface, and we're getting a few raindrops on the surface, but I'm going to just go high on the striker and then purr across this. And cluck just very lightly. I'm going to go more toward the middle. I'm going to get a little deeper purr.
But that purr, you're just dragging the striker.
Just dragging the striker. That same angle you're talking about an 80-degree angle or 70-degree angle. Drag it across. A little bit of down pressure, very light pressure on the striker.
The angle is most important in that
Yes,
purr.
it is. Just cluck and purr, cluck and purr, cluck and purr. Now, if we want to cut, we're going to go over to the side and get a little higher pitch. I'm going to cut up and down. I'm going to tick-tock, 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 tick, tick, tick-tock, tock, tock. Like you say, just a very staccato rhythm. There is no rhythm, just a wild rhythm, but it's a very excited call of the hen turkey, and this will really get turkeys fired up sometimes. We're going to cut on it just. I like to make it squeal a little bit in the middle if I possibly can. Make it sound as much like a bird as we can, but it has a terrific cutting sound, a great locator, good for finding a bird. When you've lost him for a while, if he won't gobble, to make him gobble again.
That is a good sound, and there's no pattern to the way you're cutting. And I've heard callers in contests develop a pattern, but I've never heard a hen in the wild have a pattern to her cutting.
Not
she might
particularly.
cut
No.
2 or 3 times, break a minute, and then cut again. But they try to get a pattern. I don't think you want that.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to yelp just a little bit with this graphite striker. I love this graphite striker. We just brought it out this year. Got a terrific scratchy yelp. You talk about being scratchy and raspy. You won't get a whole lot scratchier than this.
It's a unique, different tone. It really does have a different sound out there.
I like that squeal that you
Yeah.
get with it.
I did. It was a little higher pitch and a little raspy. And you know, you were over here the other day, fooling around. You said that thing really sounded good
It did.
when you were at a distance.
Let's talk about a cackle once.
Okay.
We'll move into the one that's sort of a series of a lot of yelps. And I'll do the cackle on a double glass because it has a real clear pitch. Cackle's something that you'll use if you want to get that gobbler all fired up and really think there's a hen in heat over there, or a really hot hen looking for him. And really it's a lot of yelps, and you got to keep your wrist anchored and keep your hand anchored, and you go like this sort of. It's like bup, 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 bup. Now you also may have heard of, say, a fly down cackle where you have a bird that's in a tree, and early morning she'll fly down out of the tree, and it'll start out sounding something like this. So that's sort of the fly down cackle where the bird's now sort of glided into the field, and the old gobbler's hopefully out
He
there.
beats her wings and
Yep.
comes down.
Works real well.
The cutting that Jim did and the cackle that you're doing are to get the birds cranked up. The 1, 2, 3, 4 series that I showed you, the basic yelp, is just to learn the rhythm of the call. These are calls that will actually get the bird cranked up and get him to gobble well. You don't want to be a real quiet and laid back hen when you're trying to get the gobbler to gobble.
Let's talk about one that's probably the most difficult for people to believe that you can do. First of all, if you hunt fall birds and you want to learn how to do a kiki whistle run, for the handicap callers like me, I learned to do it on a friction call because I'm not a real good mouth caller, right?
Well, folks, everybody can't do this thing on a friction call. I got news for you. It's very, very difficult to do, but Mike can give you some instruction on how to do it.
Well, what you can learn to do on your friction calls, if you get a thin striker, you can put lots of down pressure on the call. And I'll use a triple glass in this case.
And tighten up on the striker, right?
Really squeeze
Okay.
the striker and use little circles on the striker so I can make little circles and go. Make like a whistle. And now once I get the whistle, if I want to do the actual bark of a young bird like a jake, I'll go rop, rop, and I go like this. And it gives me a kiki run for the fall, which also works pretty good in the springtime.
Oh, yeah. Gets birds fired up a lot of times, especially those young birds of the year. Jakes are, year-old birds. They still respond well to the kiki. And old gobblers will gobble to it many, many times in the spring also.
Well, talking about a gobbler, let's do the last one, and I'll call it just a gobbler yelp. The old gobbler who's out there, and he's going to sound like maybe an old hound dog off in the distance, but he barks just a couple times. Yeah, real low, and kind of what I like to try to do is hold the call a little bit different, but I really work the center of the call in this case.
Right, deepest part of the call.
Deepest part of the call, and go. Just a couple barks like that, and you'll know it's a gobbler.
You also climb the striker on that. You're higher up on the peg.
Come up a little bit higher on the peg to give you that gobbler bark.
And you go to the middle and hold a little looser so it'll rattle a little bit more, right? A lot of technique to this. That's one of the things we've been trying to show you today is the various kinds of techniques you can use in these, all the variation you can get with these calls. There's a ton of different sounds. You can get a ton of different turkey sounds. You can go all the way from the youngest hen to the oldest gobbler with these type calls. Very, very easy to do and very authentic when you hear them in the woods. The sound really has a good ring to it in the woods. Well, we've enjoyed doing this with you today. We hope you continue to follow this perfection series. We hope to continue to do it. Our last one was mouth call A to Z. This one's going to be our treatise on what we call the friction type calls, or the glass and slate calls. But the important thing we'd like to stress to you is when you're out here is to have a good time. Bagging a turkey is not the end of the world. It's not the be-all and the end-all. But it's fun. But just being out here in nature and watching the dogwoods bloom, and we caught in a couple of hens this morning, had a great time watching them come in. So remember that. Let that be your goal, to have a good time. It's fun using these calls and having a great time with them, but having a good time, I think, is more important. So from Tom and Mike and our team here at Perfection, we just have one more piece of advice for you. When you turkey hunt, make sure you do it with perfection.
The only way.
Perfection Turkey Calls Incorporated manufactures 14 different diaphragm mouth calls to cover the entire tonal range from clear to extra raspy, color-coded for convenient selection. The recently introduced Master Series adds another dimension in tonal quality, featuring RX1 rubber for long life and natural lifelike sounds. Perfection Turkey Calls also features a complete line of friction calls, unsurpassed in quality of workmanship and reliability. Jim Clay and Tommy Duval have participated in several video productions about turkey hunting. These videos are informative as well as entertaining. Look for Perfection Turkey Calls or call 1-800-422-9357. Hunting Classics Limited manufactures a compact, lightweight wader made of triple-coated polypropylene. These compact waders slide easily over your boots to give you total waterproof protection when crossing creeks, and also give your clothing protection from early morning dew. Tree Bark, manufacturers of the original bark pattern. Look for the Tree Bark label. Turkey and Turkey Hunting Magazine will improve your odds of bagging a prize gobbler. Each issue is loaded with the best information available to increase your success and enjoyment of turkey hunting. You'll learn about turkey behavior and biology, calling techniques, hunting tactics, lessons from the experts, and much, much more. Don't wait. Subscribe to Turkey and Turkey Hunting today. Call our toll-free hotline, 1-800-258-0929. Bushnell, long recognized as makers of high-quality hunting scopes and opticals, now offers a scope specially designed for the turkey hunter, the Bushnell Turkey Scope. This new scope uses a large exit pupil and amber-coated high-contrast optics that maximize usable light and aids in beard and spur evaluation. The thick reticle and 40-yard parallax setting assures accuracy and shot placement. To see turkey hunting in a new way, stop by your local sporting goods dealer or call 1-800-423-3537 for more information. Nestled in the heart of western Maryland's Garrett County, the Savage River Lodge provides the perfect combination of convenience and rustic seclusion for those seeking to enjoy the outdoors. With its truly unique combination, the Savage River Lodge blends the relaxing pace of nature with gracious accommodations and will afford you with the comforts you enjoy in the perfect setting to take advantage of the year-round recreational activities. For further information, contact the Savage River Lodge.